Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to be going over my thoughts from the 0.1.1 reveal that I watched a couple of hours ago. And there's two big topics that I'm mainly going to focus on, that being the one portal map if you die, and the Atlas passive tree and map progression. So there's a lot of good things coming in the 0.1.1 patch. Armor is getting a slight buff. They're changing the scavenging plating, so hopefully that's more useful to help boost armor. They're adding 4 new watchtowers, reworking the existing watchtowers, so you're not gonna be walking into a room full of enemies that can freeze you, but you can't see them because there's walls. They reworked that, and there's going to be different types of towers, so that will help a lot. You'll be able to zoom out the Atlas further and see much more of it. There's a beam of light showing you where citadels are. Console will be getting loot filters. A map stash tab is in the works. You'll be able to get 60% increased omens from the rituals. So hopefully that might make crafting stuff a little bit more accessible. There's going to be more bosses on the Atlas, as well as tablets to add bosses to maps. They're increasing the simulacrum splinter drop rate. You'll be able to tell which biome a map is in by hovering over it on the Atlas. Strong boxes are going to open faster. Runes are now able to be resocketed with things. They've rebalanced a bunch of uniques. The Pinnacle boss fight has 6 portals now. Lots of good stuff that is coming. But the biggest thing that I was hoping for that is not coming is the one portal maps. Now, if you do not die in maps, you can pull as much loot out of the maps as you want. If you're playing by yourself, you can pull 6 portals of loot out of the map. But if you die in the map, you lose everything that is left in that map. You don't get to loot anything else that was there, and you have to put a new map in. You don't get to run any of the content that was in that map, and you take an XP penalty. And as I was watching in the Q&A when this question was brought up, they seemed pretty divided on it, internally as well as in the Twitch chat. The thing that kind of stood out is that they seem to have the idea that giving map portals back is not the solution, that maybe if you die in the map, you can still go back in and rerun the content. And they're really hesitant to say that, okay, if you die in the map, you can go back in. And the Twitch chat was a literal like 50-50 split of W's and L's, like spammed at speed. So the community is also pretty split on this as well. And I feel very, very strongly about this issue. And you are welcome to disagree with me. If you have other opinions than mine, definitely tell me in the comments below, because I know this is a topic that people are very divided on. I believe that people who have a lot of Path of Exile experience are doing okay with the one map portal, including myself. I have 3 characters level 90 or above, and if the map portals never come back, I personally am going to be okay. I'm still going to love this game. I'm still going to play it. But I do believe a majority of the players that are more okay with the one map portal are not dying in maps. They're probably playing their monk build with this screen-wide AoE Herald of Ice nonsense that's going on, one-shotting entire screens of stuff, and they're exalting their maps, corrupting them to tier 16s, and running them with no issues whatsoever. But I believe for the more casual players of the game, they're getting to maps, and the feeling of dying in a map, losing the loot, like dying with a divine on the screen. I died in SSF with a unique stellar amulet on my screen. It wouldn't show me if it was the Astromentus or not, but I kept going. I feel like most players who are more casual at PoE will wind up in that situation and turn the game off. Because that feeling is devastating. There is no learning there, it's nothing but punishment. And it feels just absolutely terrible. And I think it is a thing that is causing this game to hemorrhage players that are newer to the game, that are making it into the end game and not playing the most meta build. Another factor here is that you have to remain so focused all the time when you are doing maps, because if you make the slightest mistake and die, you lose all those rewards. You don't want that negative feeling. So you're out here gaming your mind out. When I think back to PoE 1, a lot of the mapping experience is very chill and relaxed, and you can approach that with such a wide variety of crazy different builds and concoctions of things that might not be meta at all, might never actually get to even the normal in-game bosses and be able to kill them, like a Shaper or a Maven. But you can do maps comfortably, relax, and chill and map. There is no chill and map in PoE 2. But this also has an issue that it really prohibits build diversity. So this character I made is a Stormweaver. I saw this gem in the game called Frostfire. More magnitude of ignite inflicted on frozen targets. I wanted to make a build that froze targets and then ignited them. This build is awful. Min-maxed about as far as I could push it with like relative ease. Like the staff is ridiculous for my ignites. Ignites don't always go off. That's a balance issue. Sure. But the prospect of like taking a unique idea like this and going into maps, it's just going to be a frustrating experience 100% of the time, unless you're playing something that is really strong at the time. And this just really isn't it, with the big flame blast, like all of it. And as somebody who does a lot of crazier build ideas in PoE 1, that's something I was really looking forward to doing in PoE 2, but I felt so insanely punished by this, I stopped playing this character at level 81 because it just wasn't as good to play compared to the other build that I was playing, using these lightning rods and the orb of storms, and like this build can just like clear just about anything in the game. So my second big point here is that I don't think players should be punished like this for trying to take their own unique ideas into in-game and playing a bad build. It's something you can absolutely do in PoE 1, and you can still map with it and have fun. There is no having fun playing these builds in PoE 2, because you're going to end up struggling, you're going to die, and you're going to lose all the things on your map. So overall, your experience is far less rewarding than it could be if you were able to go back in the map, learn how to deal with the content that was killing you, or just use those maps to be able to generate yourself better gear and currency to improve your build. I'm reminded of something Chris Wilson said a long time ago about players reaching maps in PoE 1 that they own their souls. And I don't think that is true about the end game of PoE 2. I feel like for most newer players approaching this, they're gonna get frustrated, they're gonna die, they're gonna lose their XP, they're gonna lose all their loot, and then they're gonna have to like progress through all these other maps to get new tablets in their watchstones, to get new stuff on their maps so that they can like try to go at that content again. For more casual players who don't have as much time to play, that experience of investing all this time to get your towers, juice the maps, do all that prep, and just watch it vanish, they're going to turn the game off and they're going to go play something else. And I strongly believe that is not in GGG's best interest. But then let's say you're not playing the most meta build, but you have enough know-how of how Path of Exile works, and you're able to create a build that can do things and have built it to where you're capable of doing like higher tier maps and things. When you're going in those maps, you have to play extremely cautiously, because you're not stacking 12,000 energy shield on your character, because on this build it's like, oh, I'm playing with these explosive grenades and it's fun, it's cool, there's big explosions and I want to have fun in map, but the entire time I'm in the map I'm on edge because I have to stay so focused and I can't make a mistake. And if I get distracted by something happening on the other side of the room or anything, that can result in the loss of my character and all that prep work I put into my maps. How do you take that feeling away? If you die in the map, you can go back in the map. It really is that simple to me. So Jonathan mentioned that, like, they're talking about maybe bringing the map portals back is not the solution here. That if you fail the map, you have to put a new map in, but you can still go do the content if they were able to work out how to refresh the content in the map. I don't think that's the solution either. So what I think needs to happen is you put the map in, you can run it, you have 6 portals. If you want to take 6 portals of loot out, you can. But if you die, Doriani has to go in the map using up a second portal to drag your body out. And I think giving 6 portals, so 6 people could enter the map, or you could go in and out 6 times, is fair, but if you die in the map, you lose an extra portal. And then if you fail 3 times to complete the map that you put in, you would then lose the rewards as you currently would. It would require player knowledge to know, oh, I put this crit double damage map in that's gonna kill you on most builds almost every single time. If I were to fail that content at that point, I deserve to lose the rewards in the map. I do think on maps with map bosses in them, absolutely the map boss should respawn at full health just like it does in the campaign. If you're gonna beat the map boss, you should have to beat the map boss in its entirety. I think being able to die 3 times in the map would relieve the pressure that comes with mapping in the game, and it really wouldn't change things for players who can complete the map without dying at all. Another factor here is that if you are in a party with another player, you use 2 portals to go in the map together as a duo. One of you dies in the map, the other one can pick up the loot and still leave. If you're playing in the map solo, everything is just gone. Now, I always saw this as kind of a perk to kind of playing solo in PoE 1, that if you go in a map with a 6-person party, everybody loots what they loot, but as a solo player, I can take 6 portals worth of loot out, even if I were to die in the map. So, like, in this state of PoE 2, it's actually more punishing for solo players, which is a larger portion of the player base than those playing in parties. So let's say you're playing a duo in the map, and you both die, 2 portals go down in addition to the 2 you used to go in, and the 2 of you can only go in 1 more time. So to me, I think that's kind of a happy medium to the situation that still has more punishment than PoE 1 on death. You're not going to be able to use a 6 portal defense mechanism to get through the map. So you're going to have to be, like, better at dealing with the stuff than you would be in PoE 1. Like, no cast on death build shenanigans are still gonna fly, but if you die doing your breach and then you've completed 3 of your ritual altars and you don't get to, like, get any of that stuff, you should be able to go back in. Like, you might lose the breach that you had done. In PoE 1, if you die in a ritual altar, the altar is done. You can't kill more monsters in it. So there's ways to punish players for failing the content. If you die in the breach ends. Those kind of things. You die fighting the boss resets its HP. If you die while you're in the delirium fog dissipates. Like, those things can happen, and there still be ways for punishing players failing the content without wiping all of the content for failing 1 piece of any of it. So I have a response to the tweet I posted on this issue, as well as a Reddit thread about the 1 portal map. So this person saying 1 portal map is fine, been doing T16s just fine, haven't looked up a single build. So that player is clearly capable of doing it. And the response to that, you simply aren't the target of this request. You're good enough to make far fewer mistakes, could even play on hardcore. You really aren't punished or affected by this issue at all. For the rest of us, it's just effing unfun. It's curse out loud worthy of frustration. There is zero reason to do this to us except to piss us off and make us uninstall. I feel like that sums a lot of it up right there. Like the current system here is pushing players away from the game. But then here's the Reddit thread that popped up on this topic. There is 1,000 pages for a search on the forums for map punishment, different threads and things on this issue. So there is a lot of feedback out there on this issue. Some of the comments here, like that is a small amount compared to the number of players playing the game, kind of saying that the issue is more of a balance issue with the on-death effects and things, that if that was fixed, maybe the one portal is better. Some people clearly like it as a mechanic. One death on regular maps is completely fine. Fix your build so you don't die so easily. One death on pinnacle bosses is only a problem because it makes it hard to learn the fight. And they're going to give 6 portals for the pinnacle fight. Sure. If you want to have meaningful combat where death matters and feels impactful, you need to either lift the penalties or make the fights more forgiving. In its current states, it's indefensible. I agree. Like, it's beyond punishing. But this right here is my biggest thing. My issue with one death per map is I have to be 100% focused all the time. PoE is a grindy game, and having to focus that much for hours isn't enjoyable. I try to record about 8 hours, at least when I get to maps, a day per daily video I try and put out. And I end that 8 hours exhausted because it is so mentally taxing to do it. But then there's one death is good. It seems like they're very divided on this. At least that's what I got from it. I don't know why they'd want to die on the one portal hill. It's just not fun all the time. Literally every single time you die in the map and lose all of the stuff that's in it, all of your loot, all of your things, and your XP, it's always feels awful. Problem isn't one death per map, it's how you die. GGG addressing real problem, which is visual clarity of ground effects, no more off-screen casts, etc. If you're still dying in maps, go to the lower tier. This person's fine with one death per map if dying was actually my fault. But the thing is, there's no room for error. And there should be room for error. A game, in its essence, needs to be fun. Like, I'm coming at this trying to put a big voice out there for the people who only might have 3 hours a day to play. If they come home from their job, they get to sit down and they're like, I want to kill some monsters and get some loot, and then they go kill some monsters and get one shot dead. Are they going to want to keep logging in and playing PoE? I don't think so. It's frustrating, and something has to change, and I don't think the continued punishment of you lose everything in the map is the way. I think you have to be able to go back in the map and you have to be able to loot the stuff. It's about killing monsters, getting loot. And like, even thinking back to PoE 1, it is sometimes really fun. In like a really crazy map you have, there's this super juiced Soul Eater rare in the map that is more deadly than any map boss that you could find. It's fun to go back in the map and try and take that thing down at the end of the map after you finished it, you cleared it. I've had several experiences like that. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Honestly, maps should work. One player gets multiple portals, co-op gets revived. Like, there's actually a revive mechanic? I didn't know about that, if that's a thing. GGG has been known to cater more towards the more hardcore players of the game. And I'm not out here trying to say, like, make the game easier. I'm trying to say, make the game more accessible to newer players to get into Endgame. However that needs to be possible, my solution is if you die, you lose an extra portal. Give us all 6. In my opinion, if you want one death per map, that's what hardcore is for. You should be allowed to make mistakes in a game. Like, in its essence, it needs to be fun. And right now, it's not fun. I could keep going on and on about it, but I think I've said just about everything I need to say there. I so strongly hope that GGG reverses their decision on the one death map. It's not going to hurt the players that are just blowing up screens, and it's going to be an absolute blessing for the players who aren't. And the longer it stays that way, I believe this game is just going to continue hemorrhaging players that reach in-game, which is supposed to be the thing in the game that keeps drawing players to come back in and keep playing. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the content rewards being gated behind the pinnacle boss fights of the content. Mark seemed to imply that he really wants it this way, and I kind of think that is like going in the wrong direction. I don't mind the different difficulties of the boss fights, raising the difficulty of the boss once you complete it, having different drop tables based on the difficulty level of the fight. But the amount of grinding it takes to even get one of some of these things on here, it's just not accessible to 99% of the players that reach in-game. It's just not. How many logbooks do you need to find before you actually find one that has Alaroth in it, and then be able to fight it and kill it on your first attempt so that you can get extra remnants in your maps and then might be able to get more crafting mats to use the expedition thing? It makes no sense to me at all that this stuff needs to be gated behind those things. As somebody who really enjoys SSF as well, like, this is just ridiculous. Like, getting however many simulacrums and audience with the king, like, it requires such an absurd amount of grinding to get to this point. And maybe there can be things tied beyond like beating the bosses, but some of the like more basic things, I want to speed up my access to the simulacrum, is gated behind completing 2 simulacrums. That kind of thing should be on the actual Atlas tree, spaced out in a way that you can't spec into everything. Now, there was talk of changing how the sort of progression works. As far as right now, it's complete 10 T1 maps, then 10 T2 maps. It's not really exciting at all compared to PoE1, where you're going through and you're completing your Atlas, you're getting your Atlas passive points, but then there's also Atlas passive points tied behind doing Maven encounters of like crazy boss fights and all of these other things and ways to get extra Atlas passives. But there was this sense of completion in PoE1. You had to complete all of these different maps in order to get it. What I think should be done here is there needs to be some way to juice the content in a way to make it easier to access the bosses, to get the crazier things locked behind them on the base Atlas tree. Very similar to how it is in PoE1, and I agree that the complete this many T1, T2 maps, like, it's not good and should probably go. Completing each map that can have a map boss in it. Like, if I were to run this mine shaft and complete it with the boss in it, kill that boss in that map, I should get an Atlas passive point for that. And it gives you this giant scavenger hunt on this giant Atlas, which I can't wait till I can scroll this out more, to find bosses in all the possible maps that can have a boss. As I guess currently there are some maps that just can't have bosses, which that doesn't make sense. But it gives you something to like push for and chase on the Atlas that is not just find citadels, run higher tier maps. And that sense of completion is like the big thing that I am missing with this in-game system. And I think that would be a fun way to do it. Just running and completing an Abyss map maybe could give you a passive, but like maybe the map boss needs to be tied to a certain tier of map. Defeat a map boss in this map at a certain tier, and there would have to be a way of displaying that and a way to like go after the ones that you haven't done in some way. I do really like the idea of the towers and the radius and the juice and the things, but it absolutely could be better. And then now here's an Abyss map with a boss. I need to go in that one and complete that one in the first 3 attempts at the boss before I run out of portals, and then it wipes the rewards on the map. to get my Atlas passive point. I think that would be a lot of fun and definitely more engaging in progressing through the end game. And then you might have to really go hunting down some of these last things. And then with your limited Atlas passive points, do you want to spec more into rituals? Do you want to spec more into essences? Do you want to try and get shrines? Do you want to focus more on tablets? Do you want to get more waystones? Do you want to go after expedition or breach? You should be able to use those limited points as you're progressing to like, I need something from this thing, not I have to complete the end tier of this thing to be able to make the thing better. It is so infinitely more possible to get a breach stone once you can increase the quantity of breach splinters dropped by the breach monsters. And once you have more clasped hands in your maps, it makes it so much easier to get back to the breach boss. But your first one, getting that first kill is like, it takes such a long grind. It's insane. And the same with the delirium. Ritual favors have increased chance to contain an audience with the king. So like all these, it's like making the boss more accessible after you've accessed the boss. And that should be something that you could kind of like get and chase without having to beat the boss. So it feels really odd to me. And it just in essence makes the content really feel dull and just like inaccessible. So I would really like to see this whole idea reworked, and then it would give much more meaningful choices with what you do with your Atlas points. So those are the two big things I wanted to address. Still lots of cool changes coming. Still in early access. The first actual like big patch coming in since the launch. I know they had their holiday break after a massive payday with the launch of this early access, and it is summer in New Zealand when people like to take vacations. So where I'm at in North America, where it's snow outside, I'm huddled in my room in blankets, and it's definitely a different time of year down in New Zealand. So I'm hopeful for changes to come, but I want the tension in the maps to go away. Like for me personally, I want to relax and map and not be on edge at all times, on the edge of my seat, hardcore like grinding out maps where if I make a single mistake, I die. If I step in the wrong spot, I get hit by an enemy in one shot. And I can grind maps for days on days on days on end in PoE 1, and it's fun. And this, like, it's exhausting. And I was going to save this till tomorrow and sleep on it, but I wasn't able to sleep. I was so riled up by this that I had to say something and just put this video out. So if you have differences of opinion, I'd love to hear them. Respond in the comments. I definitely read all the comments as my channel is still fairly small. And I will leave it here, and I still plan on getting the final 2 acts of the Pathfinder push out tomorrow, and this is just a bonus video. But with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss more videos from me. If you'd like to help support my channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon just below the video, or by joining to become a member, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Cheers.